The sun was burning hot. Heat waves danced on the street, and the air smelled like warm dust and car exhaust. A 10-year-old girl named Mia was walking home from school, her small backpack bouncing against her back. Her braids were damp with sweat, and her worn-out sneakers tapped against the melting asphalt. That's when she saw a shiny red Mustang parked on the side of the road. Its hood popped open like a yawning mouth. Steam hissed from inside. Next to it stood a man in a sharp navy blue suit, pacing in circles, yelling into his phone. His voice was sharp and angry. "I don't care how much the tow costs. I've been stuck out here for 2 hours. I have a meeting with the governor in 3. He looked at his gold watch and let out a heavy sigh. Mia slowed down. Her Aunt Rosa always told her to stay away from strangers, especially men in fancy clothes, who didn't belong in their neighborhood. But something about the way he kept checking his watch, frustrated and helpless, made her stop. She looked at the car. She looked at him. She adjusted the straps on her backpack, the one that held her books, and a small metal toolkit, a gift from her Uncle Miguel. He ran a garage nearby and had taught her about engines and wires since she could walk. Mia stepped closer. "Excuse me, sir," she said politely, her voice soft but clear. "Need help with your car?" The man looked up, surprised. His eyes scanned her small girl, faded shorts, a too large t-shirt with MIT printed on the front, and a smudge of grease already on her cheek. He forced a smile. "That's kind of you, sweetheart," he said with a chuckle. "But this is a high-performance vehicle. I need a real mechanic." Mia shrugged, stepping toward the car anyway. "My uncle owns a garage," she said. "I can take a look. Maybe it's something small." He didn't stop her. He didn't know why, but he did in single quotes T. She dropped her backpack, opened it, and pulled out a small case. Then she leaned into the engine with the calm focus of someone far older. She didn't flinch from the heat or the mess. Her fingers moved fast, tracing hoses, wires, and bolts like they were pages in a book. "When did the problem start?" she asked. "About 40 minutes ago," the man replied, watching her. "It started overheating, then just died." Mia nodded. "Did it smell sweet, like syrup?" He blinked. "Yeah, actually." "How did you know?" "Coolant leak," she said, pointing at a small puddle on the ground. "See that? That's antifreeze. There's a hole in one of your hoses." The man stared, amazed. He hadn't noticed it. Not even close. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mia," she said, brushing sweat from her brow with the back of her hand. "That's when it happened." As her hand moved, a small gold ring on her finger caught the sunlight. The green gem in the center glowed for a second, bright and sharp. The man froze, his breath caught in his chest, his eyes locked on the ring. It wasn't just the gem, it was the tiny crescent-shaped crack inside it. A flaw. One he remembered. It couldn't be. He stepped forward slowly. "That's a very special ring," he said carefully. Mia looked down. "It belonged to my mom," she said. "My adoptive mom, Carmen. She died last year. She told me it was a symbol of something important." He nodded slowly, the name Carmen echoing in his mind. "May I ask where she got it?" Mia shook her head. "She never said. Just told me to wear it always." The man stood still, eyes filled with memory. 12 years ago, he'd given that very ring to a little girl named Maya at a place called Sacred Hearts Orphanage, just days before the place shut down without warning. He'd never seen the girl again. Mia twisted open a bottle of water from her bag and poured it carefully into the coolant tank. "There, it should work until you get to a shop." "You're incredible," the man said, still shaken. "Thank you," she smiled. "Glad I could help." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. "Can I give you a ride home?" Mia hesitated. "I live nearby, just a few blocks." "I'd like to thank you properly," he said. "Please." She looked into his eyes and nodded. "All right." As they drove off, neither of them knew the world had just shifted. The past was waking up. Secrets were rising. And a quiet little girl with a toolkit and a ring had just cracked open a door to something no one was ready for, not even him, not even her. The car ride was quiet at first. Maya sat in the front seat, her backpack on her lap, watching the streets pass by through the window. The man drove slowly, glancing at her every now and then, not in a creepy way, but like he was trying to solve a puzzle. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. "You said your name is Mia?" he asked softly. She nodded, without turning her head. "I'm Alexander," he said. "Alexander Blackwood." Mia looked at him and gave a small smile. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Blackwood." He tried to return the smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. His thoughts were spinning. The ring, the name Carmen, the orphanage. It couldn't all be a coincidence. But he didn't want to scare her. He had to know more slowly. "Where do you go to school?" he asked. "Jefferson Elementary," she replied. "Just finished 4th grade. "Impressive," he said. "You seem very smart. Most kids your age wouldn't even touch an engine." "My uncle taught me," she said proudly. "Uncle Miguel. He runs a garage. He and Aunt Rosa took me in after my mom passed." "Did you always live with them?" Mia paused. "Since I was little. My mom, Carmen, adopted me when I was a baby." She didn't say much about before. Alexander felt something tighten in his chest. "Do you know where she adopted you from?" Mia looked unsure. "She called it Sacred Hearts. It was a small place, but she never said much more." Alexander nearly missed a stop sign. Sacred Hearts. That name hadn't been spoken in over a decade. His father had shut it down. Quickly, quietly. Officially, it was for financial issues. But even back then, something about it didn't sit right. He remembered visiting once, just once, and meeting a shy little girl named Maya who'd taken apart a broken fan and fixed it without help. He remembered giving her a ring, an old one, from his mother's jewelry box just to make her smile. Then everything disappeared. A week later, the orphanage was gone. So were the records. And Maya, until now, they reached a modest little house at the end of a quiet street. It had peeling paint and a rusted gate, but flowers bloomed in old plastic bottles along the fence, and wind chimes danced in the breeze. Mia pointed. "That's my home," she said, already unbuckling her seatbelt. Alexander reached into his coat pocket and handed her a card. "If you ever need anything at all, just call me." She looked at the card curiously. "Why?" He paused. "Because you helped me today, and ... Maybe there's more I can help you with too." Mia nodded slowly and slipped the card into her backpack. "Thanks." She got out of the car and waved as she ran toward the gate. Alexander watched her until she disappeared inside. He sat there for a long minute, staring at the empty passenger seat. Then he pulled out his phone. "Ramirez," he said when someone answered. "I need you to look up a girl. Her name is Mia Rodriguez. She's about 10. Her mother's name was Carmen. Find everything." "And Ramirez?" "Yes, sir. She's wearing a ring, emerald stone. Check my email, I just sent a picture. I need to know where that ring came from. I think she's Maya from Sacred Hearts." There was silence on the line. Then the voice said, "Understood." That night, Mia sat at the kitchen table, quietly eating rice and beans while her aunt and uncle talked in low voices nearby. She glanced at them but didn't say anything. Her fingers touched the ring on her hand, spinning it slightly. For some reason, it felt different now. Not just a memory of her mom, but something more. Something important. After dinner, she slipped into the garage behind the house. It was her favorite place. The air always smelled like oil and old metal, and her tools were exactly where she left them. She liked being here. Things made sense. Here, she picked up a small clock radio that wasn't working and sat cross-legged on the floor, carefully removing the back panel. Wires were disconnected, but not broken. She twisted 2 of them together and the dial lit up softly, music crackling through the speaker. She smiled to herself. Behind her, Uncle Miguel appeared, wiping his hands with a rag. "You fixed it already?" he asked. "Just needed a little connection," she said. He smiled and ruffled her braids. "You really are something else." Mia looked up at him. "Uncle ... Today I met a man. His car broke down and I helped him." He said his name was Alexander Blackwood. Miguel's smile vanished. She continued. "When he saw my ring, he froze. He stared at it like he knew it." Miguel looked toward the kitchen window where Rosa stood watching. He swallowed hard. "Mia," he said gently. "Remember when we said we'd tell you more about your mom when the time was right?" She nodded slowly. "I think," he said quietly, "that time has come." And in the shadows of that small garage, something long buried was about to rise again. The garage was silent, except for the soft ticking of the clock radio Mia had just fixed. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her hands resting on her lap. Uncle Miguel had pulled up an old stool and sat down slowly, elbows on his knees, eyes full of something she couldn't name. Worry, sadness, maybe both. "Mia," he said gently, "do you remember the night Carmen died?" She nodded. The brakes failed. The car spun off the road. The police said it was an accident. He looked down. "That's what we told you, but Carmen didn't believe it was just an accident." "And neither do we?" Mia blinked. "What do you mean?" Miguel let out a long breath. "Carmen was scared before that. For weeks. She kept saying someone might come looking for her. For you. For me." Mia's voice was barely above a whisper. "Yes," he said. "Because of where you came from. Carmen told us that you weren't just adopted. She rescued you." He stood and went over to a locked metal drawer at the back of the garage. Mia had seen it 100 times but never seen it open. He pulled out a small yellowed envelope, carefully sealed and labeled with her name in her mother's handwriting. "She made us promise to give this to you only if something strange ever happened. Especially if someone from the Blackwood family came asking questions." Mia took the envelope with trembling hands. The paper was old and brittle. She opened it slowly and unfolded the letter and sighed. "My sweet Maya," it began. She froze. No one ever called her that. Not since she could remember. "If you're reading this, then someone from my past has found you. There are things I never told you. Things I couldn't. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted to protect you. You were taken from a place called Sacred Hearts. It wasn't just an orphanage. It was something much darker. I worked there as a nurse, and I saw things. Terrible things. They weren't just caring for children. They were testing them." Mia's hand shook. "You were one of them. A child they believed had a gift, a talent. They called it enhanced cognition. But I just saw a brilliant little girl who could fix things most adults couldn't even understand. I had to get you out. And I did. But we were always hiding. The ring you wear, it's not just a memory. It holds something important inside. Something that could bring them down." Mia looked up at Miguel, her eyes wide. "The ring," she said, reaching for it. Miguel nodded. "We've never opened it. Carmen told us not to, but it's time." Her fingers searched the tiny imperfections in the emerald stone, and then she felt it a small notch. She twisted it carefully, and the stone lifted. Inside was something tiny and metallic. "A chip?" she whispered. Miguel took it carefully. "Looks like a memory drive." That night, while Mia sat on the couch with Rosa, Miguel connected the chip to an old laptop in the garage. It took a few minutes to decrypt, but when the files opened, he called them in. The screen filled with blurry video footage. Children in uniforms. A young nurse, barely out of college, sneaking through a hallway with a baby wrapped in a towel. "Carmen." Then a man's voice, cold and familiar. "We can't lose her. The girl shows rare spatial reasoning beyond adult levels. She's Project 17. Get her back. Quietly." Rosa covered her mouth. Mia stared at the screen. "That's my mom," Miguel nodded. "And that voice is Howard Blackwood," Rosa said. "Alexander's father." At that same moment, across the city, Alexander sat in his office, papers scattered all around him. Old files, closed projects, photos, receipts. He wasn't sleeping. He hadn't since the moment he saw that ring. His phone buzzed. "Mr. Blackwood," said the voice on the other end. "We've confirmed it." The girl Mia Rodriguez was never listed in Sacred Heart's official adoption records. But a nurse named Carmen disappeared the same week the orphanage shut down. With a child, Alexander's heart thudded. "And the ring?" he asked. "Same one, sir. The emerald stone, the gold band, the crescent-shaped flaw, it's all a match. We checked the footage from 12 years ago. You gave it to a girl named Maya at Sacred Hearts." Alexander stood up and stared out the window. "Where is she now?" he asked. "She's with her aunt and uncle. Lives in a quiet neighborhood. Goes to public school. Seems normal. She's not normal," Alexander said softly. "She fixed a car I couldn't figure out, and she's only 10. The voice on the phone hesitated. "Sir, I should also tell you. Someone else is digging around. A reporter. He's looking into Sacred Hearts, and he's getting close." "Let him," Alexander said after a pause. "He deserves to know what happened. What should I do?" Alexander looked down at the photograph in his hand. A smiling Carmen. "Holding baby Maya now, Mia. Nothing," he said. "For now?" But something inside him had shifted. A storm had begun. And this time, he wasn't sure whose side he was on. Back in the garage, Mia sat between Rosa and Miguel, the laptop glowing in front of them. "I'm not crazy, right?" she whispered. "That's really me?" Miguel placed his arm around her. "Shoulder, that's you." "And this?" He pointed at the screen. "This is why your mom was always looking over her shoulder." Mia looked at the chip now sitting in the center of the table. She said it could bring them down. And in that moment, the girl who once only wanted to help fix a stranger's car realized her life was never ordinary. It never had been. Next morning, Mia didn't feel like going to school. She sat at the kitchen table staring at her untouched cereal. Rosa and Miguel were whispering again, just like they had the night before. Everything felt different now, like the house was quieter, like even the air was heavier. She kept thinking about the letter, about the chip hidden inside her ring, and about the voice in that video calling her Project 17. Her mother had kept all of that from her. Not to lie, but to protect her. Still, it was a lot for a 10-year-old to carry. Too much. She reached up and touched the ring again. It didn't feel like a toy anymore. It felt like a key. A quiet key to something loud and dangerous. "Mia," Rosa said softly, sitting beside her, "I know this is a lot. If you want to stay home today, you can." Mia looked up. "What are we going to do?" Rosa looked at Miguel, then back at her. "We're going to be smart, and we're going to be careful. Your mother gave us a number to call if anything ever happened. A journalist. Someone named Silva. She said he could be trusted. Is he going to help us?" Mia asked. Miguel stood and grabbed his phone. "He's going to find the truth," he said. "And if what Carmen feared is real, then we need someone who can expose it." As Miguel stepped outside to make the call, Mia quietly walked into the garage. Her safe space. She didn't touch the tools this time. She just sat on the stool and looked around. Everything here was built to be fixed. Engines, radios, wires. Broken things that could be put back together. But how do you fix something like this? Not long after, Alexander Blackwood stood in his sleek corner office, high above the city. He looked nothing like the man Mia had seen by the side of the road. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a strange tightness in his chest. He stared at a file on his desk. Inside were names. Dozens of them. Children, all from Sacred Hearts. All listed as relocated when the orphanage was shut down. Most of the pages had few details, just first names or ID numbers. But one page was different, highlighted, circled in red ink. Maya Johnson, Project 17, exceptional. Spatial intelligence, HB involvement. Alexander flipped to the next page. Bank transfers. From his father's company to state adoption. Offices, quiet payments, hidden trails dot then a blueprint. A luxury building called the Horizon Project, built on the exact site where Sacred Hearts used to stand. There was a knock on the door. "Mr. Stevens is here," his assistant said, with the Horizon documents. "Tell him to wait," Alexander replied. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Ramirez," he said, "I want every detail about Sacred Hearts. Not just the building, the people, staff, donors, anything tied to my father." "Sir," Ramirez said cautiously, "you should know. Your father's back in town. Flew in from Florida this morning. No warning. He's demanding to know why you're digging into Sacred Hearts." Alexander felt a cold sweat forming. "Let him wait too." Across the city, in a modest newsroom filled with old filing cabinets and humming monitors, a man picked up his phone. "Silva here," he said, distracted. "Mr. Silva." Miguel's voice came through, steady and tense. "I have something you'll want to see. It's about Sacred Hearts and a girl with an emerald ring." The silence on the line was immediate. "I'm listening," Silva said slowly. Back in their small house, Rosa handed Mia a warm cup of tea. "Your mom used to drink this when she couldn't sleep," she said softly. "She always said it helped her think." Mia took the cup in both hands. "Why didn't she tell me everything?" "She wanted to," Rosa said. "But she also knew the people involved were powerful. If she told you too soon, she was afraid you'd go looking for answers and get hurt." Mia looked out the window. "I don't want to be a secret anymore." "You're not," Rosa replied. "Not anymore." That night, Alexander finally faced his father. Howard Blackwood stood in the middle of the Blackwood Industries boardroom, arms crossed, face red with anger. "What do you think you're doing?" he barked. Sacred Hearts was closed. That file was sealed. Alexander walked in slowly, holding the ring photograph in one hand and Carmen's old staff file in the other. "I found her," he said. Howard blinked. "Who?" "Maya," Howard scoffed. "That girl's long gone." "She's not," Alexander said. "She lives 3 miles from here. She fixed my car with her bare hands, and she wears this ring." He tossed the photo on the table. Howard's face paled slightly. "You promised me it was just a real estate deal," Alexander said. "You said the orphanage was bankrupt. But this," he raised the file, "this is about more than land. This is about children. About what you did to them." Howard's jaw tightened. "Don't be naive. Some of those children were gifted in ways the world could use. We didn't hurt them. We studied them. You disappeared them," Alexander said. "You buried their names." Howard stepped forward, voice low. "You're not a child anymore, Alex. This world runs on power, on control. Those kids had potential that could shift entire markets: military, medical, engineering. Your little friend Maya, she was a goldmine. And you gave her a ring and walked away." Alexander looked at his father like he was seeing him for the first time, a man who would trade lives for profit. "She's not a goldmine. She's a child." Howard's smile was thin and cruel. "Not anymore. Not with what she knows." Alexander's heart pounded. His next move wouldn't just challenge his father. It could destroy everything the Blackwood name stood for. But deep down, he already knew he was ready to do it for the girl with the emerald ring, for Maya, for Mia. The conference room on the 50th floor of Blackwood Industries had never been this tense. Outside, the city skyline sparkled under the morning sun, but inside, everything felt cold and still. Executives whispered quietly. Security stood by the doors. Everyone had been told. This was an urgent internal briefing. No one knew what to expect. Then the doors opened. Alexander Blackwood stepped inside, not in his usual custom-tailored suit, but in jeans and a blazer. He looked calm, focused. Right behind him walked a woman in a plain gray pantsuit. She carried a folder under one arm and had a quiet authority in the way she moved. Her badge read, Federal Prosecutor Claire Martinez. Howard Blackwood, already seated at the head of the table, looked up and narrowed his eyes. Is this a joke? He barked. No. Alexander said quietly. It's not. Howard stood, clearly furious. This is my company, my boardroom. You don't bring outsiders here without clearance. Alexander ignored him. He walked to the screen at the far end of the room, opened his laptop, and connected it to the projector. The screen lit up. Everyone turned toward it. What you're about to see, he said, has been buried for over 12 years. I helped bury it without even knowing what it was. The first image appeared, a grainy video still of a nurse holding a baby as she ran through a dim hallway. Carmen Rodriguez. The room fell silent. She was a nurse at Sacred Heart's orphanage, Alexander said. 12 years ago, she fled the building with a child in her arms. That child's name was Mia. Now she goes by Mia. Howard stood quickly. That footage was stolen. Alexander didn't look away. No, it was hidden. Along with everything else about the Blackwood Foundation's involvement in the orphanage system. The next clip played security footage of Howard speaking to two men in dark suits. We can't lose her. The girl has cognitive markers off the charts. She's not just gifted, she's one of a kind. Project 17 must not disappear. Gas filled the room. One of the executives stood. Is this real? Is that voice yours? Howard didn't answer. His face had turned pale, but his jaw was clenched. Alexander spoke again. This ring, he held up a photo of the emerald ring, was given to Maya before the orphanage shut down. Inside it was a hidden chip. On that chip, we found adoption records, test results, and internal memos from my father's own desk, including these. He clicked again. Bank records. Secret adoption placements. Payments to state officials. Timelines of orphanage closures. One board member whispered, My God. Prosecutor Martinez stepped forward. These documents show systematic suppression of evidence, falsification of medical records, and illegal testing on minors. This wasn't charity, it was exploitation. And the Blackwood Foundation funded all of it. Howard slammed his fist on the table. You have no idea what you're doing. These documents are classified. They were, Alexander interrupted. Until Mia released them. The doors opened again. This time, it was Mia. She stepped in slowly, wearing her oversized MIT shirt, her hair pulled back in two braids. Behind her walked her Uncle Miguel and a tall man holding a camera Silva. The journalist thought the camera's red light was on. Howard's eyes widened. You're recording this? Streaming it, Silva said calmly. Liv. Alexander turned to face his father. It's over. Howard's voice dropped low. You think the world cares about one little orphan? I built this company from the ground up. You're going to burn it all down for some girl? I'm not burning it, Alexander said. I'm saving what's left. He turned to Mia. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. But Mia stepped forward, voice clear. My mother died to keep me safe. This ring, she held it up, was the last thing she gave me. And now I know why. It wasn't just about hiding. It was about surviving. Howard looked at her with cold calculation. So, you're the prodigy, the one with the talent, and you're the man who tried to make me disappear, she replied, her voice calm, almost too calm. The brakes on my mother's car didn't fail by accident, did they? Howard smiled, but his confidence had cracks. Prove it. That's when Mia pulled a small object from her backpack, a hidden drive shaped like a pendant. She placed it on the table. This, she said, is the full backup. My mom hid it in a second ring. It has audio recordings, test logs, video files, even your meetings with military doctors. Howard lunged for it, but two federal agents stepped in. Howard Blackwood, one said, you are under federal investigation for conspiracy, child endangerment, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Howard laughed bitterly as they handcuffed him. Do you think you've won? The truth doesn't matter. Power wins. It always does. Mia looked at him as he was led away. Maybe in your world, she said, but I'm building a new one. The agents took Howard out of the room. Alexander turned to his employees. Blackwood Industries will no longer hide behind lies. We'll rebuild with honesty, with purpose. And we'll do it with people like her. He looked at Mia. Everyone else did too. No one clapped. No one cheered, but something had changed in that room. Something big. And it started with a little girl and an emerald ring. As they left the building together, Miguel placed his hand on Mia's shoulder. Your mother would be proud. Mia looked at the sky. For the first time in her life, the world felt wide open, and she wasn't running from anything anymore. She was walking straight into it. The news hit like a thunderstorm. By the next morning, clips from the live broadcast were everywhere on news channels, social media feeds, podcasts. Everyone was talking about the 10-year-old girl who fixed a billionaire's car and brought his entire empire crashing down. Mia Rodriguez. The headlines read, "The girl with the emerald ring. The child who exposed Blackwood." Blackwood Industries stock dropped 64% within 48 hours. Government regulators announced multiple investigations. Several former executives turned themselves in. Protesters camped outside the company headquarters, holding up signs with Mia's face printed beside the words, "Every child matters." Inside their small home, Mia sat at the kitchen table, holding a warm mug of tea. She hadn't spoken much since the broadcast. Not because she was afraid, but because her mind was full. Her mother's face, the hidden files, the look on Howard Blackwood's face as he was led away, it all played on a loop in her head. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt different. Miguel sat across from her, his hand resting on a manila folder. "This came this morning," he said softly. "From the district attorney's office?" He slid it over. Mia opened it slowly. Inside was a typed letter and official recognition from the federal prosecutor's office, naming her as a key witness and whistleblower in one of the largest child exploitation investigations in recent history. There was also a court document, Howard Blackwood's arraignment schedule. She closed the folder. "It doesn't feel real." Rosa walked over, placing a hand on her shoulder. "That's because real change always feels a little unreal when it starts." Later that week, Alexander visited their home not as the heir to a billion-dollar empire, but just as himself. He wore a plain shirt, old jeans, and sneakers. He looked tired, but clearer somehow, like someone who had finally taken off a mask he'd worn too long. Mia met him at the front gate. "You came," she said. "I told you I would," he replied. They walked together to the backyard, where Miguel had set up a small workbench under the shade of a tree. Tools lay scattered across it, and Mia's latest project, a broken electric fan, was half disassembled. "I don't know what happens next," Mia said quietly, wiping dust from the fan's circuit board. Alexander nodded. "Neither do I." They sat in silence for a while. Then he spoke again. "I want to do something. Not to make up for what my family did. I don't think I ever could. But something real, something good." Mia looked at him, curious. "I want to use what's left of the company, my share of it too, start something new," he continued. "A center for kids like you, kids with gifts, kids who've been forgotten." Mia raised an eyebrow. "A new orphanage?" "No," he said quickly. "Nothing like that. A place that's safe, open, free, where no one owns anyone. Just tools, teachers, and chances." Mia thought for a moment. "Like a school?" He smiled. "Like a beginning." A few months later, the fences around the old Sacred Hearts property came down. Construction crews moved in not to build. Another luxury tower, but something entirely different. The blueprints were drawn by a group of volunteer architects. The first shovel of soil was turned by Mia. The sign read, "Rodriguez Center for Young Innovators." Miguel became the head of its engineering program. Rosa ran the community kitchen. Alexander, now stripped of his corporate title, worked behind the scenes to secure funding and partnerships. He gave up his shares, sold his mansion, and moved into a small apartment nearby Dot and Mia. Mia became the youngest advisor in the country to help design educational programs for gifted children. Each room at the center was designed to feel like a workshop, not a classroom. There were no uniforms, no tests, just curiosity, freedom, and respect. Children came from all over. Some were quiet, some loud. Some were survivors of systems just like Sacred Hearts. Many had never touched a circuit board before, but under Mia's guidance, they built things that buzzed, flew, glowed, and hummed. One afternoon, a group of reporters visited the center. Mia, one asked, "How does it feel to have taken down one of the richest families in the country?" Mia looked up from the robot she was helping a younger child build. "I didn't take anyone down," she said. "I just told the truth, and I fixed what I could." That quote made headlines. 2. Meanwhile, Howard Blackwood sat in a federal prison, awaiting trial. His lawyers filed motion after motion, but the evidence was too strong. Every week, news stories surfaced: more orphanages, more stolen records, more cover dash-ups. And none of it could be undone. But while one world fell, another was rising. On the anniversary of the center's opening, Mia stood under the same tree where she had once fixed a broken fan. This time, she wasn't alone. Hundreds of children, families, teachers, and community leaders stood with her. A brass plaque had just been revealed at the front gate. Every talent deserves to flourish. Every child deserves freedom. Mia stepped to the microphone, the same emerald ring still on her finger. But now it wasn't a symbol of secrecy or fear. Now it was a symbol of light. "When I was 10, she began, "I fixed a stranger's car on the side of the road. I thought I was just being kind. But that one small act uncovered everything. And it led me here." She looked out over the crowd. "Some things break so badly, they can't go back to how they were. But we can build something new, something better. That's what we're doing here." As applause echoed through the courtyard, Alexander stood. In the back, eyes glistening, the little girl who had once reminded him of a forgotten promise had now become the one keeping it for everyone. 5 years had passed since Mia fixed a stranger's broken car on the side of a hot road. She was no longer the quiet 10-year-old with grease on her cheeks and a ring too big for her finger. Now 15, Mia stood tall, thoughtful, and sharp-eyed, her hands still skilled, her heart still kind. She walked through the glass halls of the Rodriguez Center for Young Innovators, tablet in hand, her braids longer now but still neat. She moved through rooms filled with invention drones built from scrap parts, clean energy batteries, language learning eyes coded by children half the age of most engineers. "East wing sensors are still glitching," she said to the group of interns trailing behind her. "We need to check the wiring above the server racks. Could be overheating from the sun exposure." The young engineers nodded, scribbling notes, racing to keep up. Mia paused, turned, and smiled softly. "Also, don't forget to breathe. It's just a building. We'll fix it." That calm tone, half teacher, half mechanic, was pure Mia. Down the hall, Alexander Blackwood leaned against a railing, watching her with quiet pride. He wore simple clothes now, no tie, no watch. Once the heir to a corrupt billion-dollar empire, he had given it all up to build this place, to build her a future. Today, the center was hosting a special event, its first graduation ceremony. 12 young students from across the country, all from poor or neglected communities, were finishing the 2-year innovation program. All of them had received scholarships to top universities, job offers from tech firms, or full funding to launch their own startups. At the back of the courtyard, Rosa arranged chairs under a big tree, the same tree where Mia once sat with her broken fan. Miguel checked the sound system, now wearing a clean polo with engineering lead printed on the back. Even Silva, the journalist who first aired Mia's story, was here again, this time as a guest, not a reporter. The courtyard buzzed with nervous laughter, proud tears, and the excited energy of young people realizing their lives had already begun to change. As the crowd quieted, Mia stepped onto the stage, her speech clutched in her hand. She didn't look nervous, only thoughtful. When I was 10, she began, I didn't set out to change anything. I just saw a car that was broken, and I tried to help. Soft laughter rippled through the audience. I thought I was just doing something small. But that one moment pulled back the curtain on something huge, something dark. I learned I wasn't who I thought I was. That the people I trusted had been hiding the truth not to hurt me, but to protect me. She paused. My mom gave me a ring before she died. I thought it was just a memory. Turns out it held everything: proof, secrets, even blueprints of a system that needed to fall, and it did. But more important than what we tore down is what we built. Mia looked around at the graduates. Some of you came here after losing parents. Some of you came from shelters. Some of you had never touched a soldering iron, never coded a line of logic, never been told you were capable. She smiled. But now you're inventors, builders, dreamers, leaders. You're what comes after the broken part. The courtyard filled with applause. Miguel clapped the loudest dot after the ceremony. Mia sat with Alexander on a bench near the garden. The sun was starting to set, casting gold across the walkways and flowers. I wish my mother could have seen this, she said. Alexander nodded. She would have loved it. She gave you the strength to make this happen. She gave me everything, Mia said quietly, turning the emerald ring on her finger. But she never expected I'd have to finish her fight. Alexander looked out toward the city skyline. She started it for you. But you gave it meaning. There was a silence between them, warm, shared, understood. No longer billionaire and mechanic's daughter. No longer orphan and empire. Just two people who had chosen truth when lies were easier. Suddenly, Rosa appeared with a small envelope. Mia, this came for you, she said. Hand-delivered, Mia opened it. Inside was a letter handwritten on formal federal paper from Victoria Blackwood Federal Prosecutor's Office. Dear Mia, thanks to the evidence you shared, we've identified 5 more facilities like Sacred Hearts. They were part of something even bigger, an underground network studying children for profit. So far, we've located and rescued 37 more children. Some are like you. Some are even younger. All of them are safe now. Tears welled up in Mia's eyes. Dot at the bottom, Victoria had added one more line. They know your name, and they want to meet you someday. When you're ready. Mia passed the letter to Alexander. His throat tightened as he read. You did more than just bring down a system, he said. You helped rebuild hope. That evening, as dusk painted the center in shades of pink and purple, a new plaque was unveiled on the outer wall. Not just metal words, but a promise. Every talent deserves to flourish. Every child deserves freedom. No more shadows, no more silence. Inside the courtyard, children ran and laughed, their laughter echoing off the glass. In a far corner, a group of young girls was learning to fix a radio, just like Mia once had. One of them turned, raised a circuit board high, and shouted, It works! Mia smiled from a distance. Somewhere in the world, broken things still existed. Systems still needed changing. People still needed to be brave. But here, in this place born from a ring, a lie, and a girl who refused to stay quiet, something beautiful had begun. And it wasn't ending. It was only the beginning.